ready to go, man, lock and load. That's right. I swear to God that I could drop you, bro. Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable.
It is an exciting time to be a Defiant wrestling fan. We are now just days away from Unstoppable in Manchester. The ReLoaded podcast is on the air for the final time before Unstoppable. Dave Bradshaw here with James R. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, happy Chinese New Year.
Really? Really? We're just going to skip over the fact that you owe me an apology, really?
What do I owe you an apology for?
I cannot believe that you did not tell me that last week on this podcast you would have the general manager.
I told you repeatedly.
You did not. I thought you were lying. It's not fair. I mean, Prince Amin came on here and belittled me, called me an idiot, everything under the sun, and then you wouldn't even let me get involved in the interview. It was very unprofessional.
Yeah, I didn't. It's not I didn't let you. You went silent. You went awkwardly silent for about 6 or 7 minutes after being pretty horrible about Amin before he came on.
My feelings were hurt.
You know, if there's one thing you can't really do on a podcast, it's go silent, and that's sort of what you did. So, you know, me and the general manager just sort of continued in your absence, really.
Ugh, the way you said that made me sick. Me and the general manager, me and my good pal, General Amin. I'm glad I wasn't in that interview, quite frankly. Even though my feelings were hurt, I'm glad I wasn't involved.
Well, your feelings might be hurt a bit more because I have now, as I promised, sent him that email with all of the evidence I have regarding the vote fixing for the Commentator of the Year award, and he has replied saying he is launching another official investigation because obviously his one into El Fantasmo's sunglasses has now reached a conclusion, as we'll talk about. So there's an investigation underway and justice is coming for you, my friend.
Don't you dare ruin Chinese New Year. You know, this is personally a very happy time for my family and my life. I don't want this sullied by your conspiracy theories, Dave Bradshaw.
Well, I wished you a happy Chinese New Year. It's the year of the pig, by the way. Did you know? I was born in the year of the pig.
How fitting is that?
Well, a pig. Apparently, if you are born in the year of the pig, it means you are. I was reading this today. I was reading up on Chinese New Year. It means you are loyal, compassionate, and intelligent.
I don't believe that for a second. Does it also mean that you perpetrate these conspiracy theories, you know, and try and undercut, by the way, who's supposed to be your broadcast colleague, a friend, a dependable face that you can turn to and know that when times are tough, James R. Kennedy has your back?
Oh yeah, like when people attack me and you run away. Well, anyway, we've talked about that many times. But do you know what year were you born in out of interest? Chinese New Year, do you know?
I don't have a clue. I couldn't give a toss about Chinese New Year, quite frankly. I hate everyone right now. I'm still disgusted over your actions, and the entire world can become involved in that as far as I'm concerned. I am sick to my stomach. I can't believe that the general manager said such foul things about me. And my feelings are hurt, Bradshaw.
I would bet you a year of the snake. I would bet any money. That would be so fitting. Anyway, let's talk about what's gone on Loaded this past week. Well, never mind the year of the snake. Gabriel Kidd was hoping it would be the year of the bull in 2019. The young bull starting off, or not starting quite as 2019, but one of the first things he did this year was manage to wrangle his way into a title match against Rampage. And I'll be honest with you, we talked to General Amin about this last week, right? About how Gabriel Kidd had threatened Simon Miller physically in order to get himself that main event on Loaded this past week. And I still wasn't sure. I wasn't that convinced, actually, if I'm honest, by General Amin's answer that, you know, well, yeah, maybe it's not a reward going in there against Rampage because, you know, actually Gabriel Kidd might live to regret that, you know, quote-unquote reward. But actually he was right because Rampage beat him very nicely, and it was I was very happy to see Gabriel Kidd's head bouncing off the canvas from a pile driver as Rampage very decisively beat him to head into Unstoppable.
You were happy to see a fine young athlete like Gabriel Kidd. I mean, Rampage nearly broke his neck. Nobody, but nobody in professional wrestling delivers that pile driver like the Defiant World Heavyweight Champion. When Rampage has you in his grasp and drops you on your head, it's curtains, and it certainly was for Gabriel Kidd. But go on then, explain why you were so happy to see Gabriel Kidd, the young bull, the future of Defiant Wrestling, by the way, get beaten so soundly.
Well, because he didn't deserve... I mean, we've talked many, many times about why I don't like Gabriel Kidd, but specifically on this occasion, because he didn't deserve the title shot, did he? I mean, he didn't... the way he got that title shot, as I've said, was by threatening Simon Miller. And so I didn't think he deserved to be rewarded for that. But as Amin quite rightly said, it turned out it's not a reward. It's a punishment, because Rampage will beat the hell out of you. And that's exactly what the world champion did. And it did make me think, my goodness, if Rampage can beat Gabriel Kidd like that, and Gabriel Kidd, whatever I think of him, no doubt is an absolute top athlete, then Rampage is on absolutely scintillating form headed into Unstoppable, and that should be of deep concern to David Starr.
Well, maybe that's why at the end of Loaded, David Starr came out, confronted the champion, and then they actually had a brawl after Rampage's match with Gabriel Kidd as well. And as you say, Bradshaw, at Unstoppable, February 9th in Manchester, we're going to have Starr challenge Rampage for the very title that Rampage defended against Gabriel Kidd. And as you say again, if Rampage can do what he did to Gabriel Kidd and cinch in that pile driver, then it's all over for David Starr. If there's one move that Starr has to stay away from, it's Rampage's pile driver, because there's no getting up from that. But this is a match that you and I, we don't see eye to eye on many things, but I think we can agree on this. This match between Starr and Rampage at Unstoppable is certainly one of the tastiest world heavyweight matches we've had in Defiant Wrestling today. I mean, you're taking a fighting champion that Rampage is, and you're putting him up against one of the most frustrated wrestlers on the planet today in David Starr. And when you back a great wrestler like David Starr is into a corner, he has no option but to swing for the fences. I think that is what we're going to see at Unstoppable.
You know what? My attitude towards David Starr has evolved, over time, actually, because I used to find him kind of irritating. I think that's true of a lot of fans, because he used to have these kind of temper... Well, he still does sometimes have these kind of temper tantrums where, as you say, he's frustrated about how things are going when he thinks things don't go his way. He certainly has an ego. I'm sure no one would deny that. But you've got to admire David Starr, because there's this kind of never give up attitude that he has. He just constantly comes back and back and back and insists, pushes himself forward, pushes himself for championship opportunities. We've talked about the losing streak he went through. We've talked about how he's been the nearly man in Defiant Wrestling so many times over the past year and a half. And yet here he is, finishing the last Loaded before Unstoppable this Saturday with the Defiant World title belt in his hand, lifted above his head. And I wonder, maybe this is just his time. Maybe that is an omen of things to come. Will we see that same image of David Starr lifting the championship above his head on Saturday night?
We could. I mean, you made the bold prediction that you think, personally, that Rampage will defend the championship against all comers for the entirety of this year. But I can sense a bit of hesitation in your voice, because as much as you've looked at David Starr and maybe rolled your eyes once or twice at his actions, you know as well as I do, as well as the entire viewing world, that he is one hell of a wrestler. My question is, for David Starr, on Friday night, when that clock strikes midnight and we bleed on into Saturday, and he realises that in less than 24 hours he's going toe-to-toe with the man, the beast, the alpha male in Defiant Wrestling that Rampage is, I just wonder what his private thoughts are going to be. You know, is David Starr going to think back to all the nearly moments that he's had in this company? Or is he going to put all that behind him and say, hey, this is a new product. This is a new Jewish canon. This is a man who in less than 24 hours could make history and become the new Defiant World Heavyweight Champion. This, again, is one of the most exciting title matches that I think we've had in Defiant Wrestling.
But let me ask you this then. So I agree with you, by the way, about the question of self-doubt, right? If there's one thing that could defeat David Starr, it is if those doubts start to creep in. He has been the nearly man. He has been close but not quite got across the finish line on several occasions before. So he could almost beat himself before he even gets in the ring on Saturday if psychologically he's not in the right place. But if he is, if he's focused, if he's got the right mindset going into this, if he's physically at 100% and really raring to go on Saturday at his best, do you think there is a reasonable chance that David Starr can beat Rampage?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. David Starr, when he is at his best, is a phenomenal pro wrestler. He really, really is. He has speed. He has skill on the mat. He's a deceptively good striker. He's almost the full package. But there's the key word, Bradshaw. Almost. In Defiant Wrestling to date, David Starr just has been missing one final piece of the puzzle. Now, you know, I'm not really a betting man, but if I was going to bet on this match, my money, personally, would go on Rampage. But I think that just fires David Starr up. I really do. I think he's looking at this as a chance to prove to the world, I have arrived. Hey, I am the new Defiant World Heavyweight Champion and I'm there to be shot at. And what would it do for Rampage's career if David Starr rolled into Manchester and took that championship from him? I mean, Rampage, we've called... Well, we have called all of his title defences, and throughout every single one, Rampage has found a way to win. What if he comes up short? What will that do to his
Here's
mentality?
the thing, though. Yeah, but here's the thing. In every one of those things, we've fallen into this same trap where we've talked ourselves into believing that Rampage will lose. We certainly at several points during that main event have refused to lose against John Klinger. We thought, this is it. This is it. Rampage's title reign coming to an end. Same against Gabriel Kidd the first time they fought a fight or flight. We've done that time and time again, and that's why I made that prediction at the start of the year about Rampage going the full year, because he just finds a way. He finds a way every single time to win. And so I'm really torn because, as I said, there's part of me that just thinks, man, maybe it's written in the stars. This is, if you'll excuse the pun, but this is David Starr's time. And then on the other hand, I think, man, I've fallen into this trap so many times of betting against Rampage, and it's come back to bite me. So I just don't know. I don't know how to predict this at all.
No, definitely it's a match that's right there hanging in the balance. It really is 50-50. I know that's a cliche, especially in wrestling, but this really is 50-50. Because Rampage, with his strength, the size advantage, the undoubted strength advantage, but David Starr has an incredible heart, an incredible will to win. Now again, in Defiant, often it's been the case he hasn't been able to put every piece of the puzzle together and win and get that result he wants. But maybe Saturday night, maybe it'll all be different and he'll leave the new Defiant champion. This, folks, listen, this is one of those matches that you just think, I can't wait to see this. I wish, as much as we're going to have fun commentating it, I wish we could just sit and watch it with some popcorn, because it's going to be a fight.
All right, now let's talk a little bit before we move on about the other person in that main event from Loaded this past week, Gabriel Kidd, and what he's doing on Saturday, because Gabriel Kidd has what has been the culmination of a very, very long war against Primate in this big tag team match that's happening at Unstoppable. Gabriel Kidd teaming with his new ally and partner in crime, Rory Coyle, to go up against Primate and Joe Hendry. Which is in itself is a interesting team. Gabriel Kidd will undoubtedly be frustrated that he's lost for the second time against Rampage with the world title on the line. Does that make him even more dangerous for Primate and for Hendry on Saturday?
No doubt, because Gabriel Kidd, I think, when push comes to the shove and he stands across the ring from Hendry and Primate at Unstoppable, I think Gabriel Kidd's mind will drift back to that first championship opportunity he had at Fight or Flight against Rampage, and how Primate interjected himself, for lack of a better word, towards the end of that match. Rightly or wrongly, I think Gabriel Kidd will view this as an excuse to beat the hell out of Primate, as if it wasn't dangerous enough that we have that maniac Rory Coyle running around the place. This is going to be a different animal, a different Gabriel Kidd than maybe it would be if he had beaten Rampage. Now, that might sound obvious, but Gabriel Kidd is going to be seriously pissed off, and he's going to be out for revenge, personal revenge on Primate.
Now, I've been thinking from Primate's perspective, he's going to have been foaming at the mouth here for the opportunity because he'll feel that he hasn't really properly got revenge on Gabriel Kidd because he's had the chance before, but of course last time he had the chance was when Rory Coyle turned up and showed his true colours. So he's got a lot of unfinished business with Kidd. He's got a lot of unfinished business with Coyle. So Primate will be going into this very enthusiastically, thinking this is the opportunity to really get that payback that he's wanted for months. But he needs to be careful because it's not only an opportunity, it's also a huge risk. It's a huge risk, this, because Gabriel Kidd and Rory Coyle are serious people. They are serious people who will put you on the shelf, as Primate knows from very personal experience. So as much as I'm pleased for Primate that he's got the opportunity here to get that revenge that he so desperately wants, this could all go the other way for him. This could be a night that he comes to see as, defining his career in a very bad way.
It could be, and there's also something else at play here. I mean, we've seen recently on Loaded that all's not exactly rosy in the garden between Joe Hendry and Primate. I mean, they're not joined at the hip. They're
not a natural team.
No, they're certainly not. And I'm not for 1 second saying, by the way, that Rory Coyle and Gabriel Kidd are. I still can't believe that's going on. But they have something in common, this thirst for violence. And Primate and Joe Hendry are both incredible competitors who want to win, but they're used to being on their own. I'm not sure if they can see eye to eye and coexist, if you like, for the duration of this match. Maybe that'll give Coyle and Kidd the edge.
Yeah, I mean, and Coyle and Kidd, apart from that one, they had that one-on-one match, but I'm starting to wonder whether that was all part of the plan all along between the two. But apart from that, they don't really have any history together. As in, they don't have any sort of hostility in their past between each other. Whereas you look at Primate and Hendry, there's a big history there. They're both, WCPW or Defiant originals who have been with the company the whole time, and they've clashed multiple times. People forget this, especially when Hendry was part of the Prestige and all that kind of stuff was going on, and Primate was so often against him and against him and his pals in the Prestige. Some of those scars don't disappear overnight. Those two will remember the bad blood that they've had between each other, and it's Hendry got involved in this whole situation because he said he had respect for Primate, and he wasn't prepared, even though he'd retired earlier in the evening, he wasn't prepared to see someone like Gabriel Kidd or Rory Coyle end Primate's career, and that's why he got involved. And good for him. I think that's a very worthy reason to have got yourself involved in their business here, but. It's on a professional level. It's a professional respect. It's not a personal friendship between Primate and Hendry. They are two very, very different people.
And it's hanging on a knife's edge as well, because all it will take is one slight miscommunication, maybe a clash of heads, maybe a disagreement about who starts the match even. That's all it's going to take. And we may even see Joe Hendry and Primate come to blows. As unthinkable as that might be beforehand, don't rule it out. This is such an unpredictable, combustible match. It really is, because on one side, you have guys that, they have history. As you said, Bradshaw, Hendry and Primate. On the other, you have guys who just want to kick the hell out of people. That's what they get paid to do. They're very good at doing it, and they also relish it. So when you put those combustible elements together, you're looking at a really dangerous situation. And you touched on it. Primate, yeah, he's I'm not sure if he's 100%, but he's certainly recuperated miraculously from his injuries, his career-ending injuries. But all it could take is Coyle and Gabriel Kidd to have their wicked way with him. If they get Hendry out the way, they can do whatever they want to Primate, and that could be seriously, seriously detrimental to Primate's career.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about him making a miraculous recovery. He has made a recovery up to the point that his jaw is strong enough for him to have been medically cleared, obviously, or he wouldn't be allowed to compete. But that's not to say that his jaw is healed fully. It's just at an acceptable level. It's still weaker than the average jaw, and it wouldn't take much, like you say. And Gabriel Kidd and Coyle, they both know that. They both absolutely know that, and they would like it as a trophy, as a thing to be able to say they've done, that they were the ones who finally put Primate on the shelf by finally making that a jaw injury that he ultimately cannot come back from. And that is what they will hone in on that if they're given a chance.
I think that Rory Coyle would love nothing more in this sick, twisted studio where he makes his movies. I think Rory Coyle would love nothing more than having Primate's head hanging on the wall behind him, and that chills me to my very core.
Well, and we know that that's something he's been thinking about for, as he said, what was it, 801 days or something like that? The amount of time he'd been thinking about that before he finally premiered The Yard, that weird, sick home video where he described the reasons for his beef with Primate over the past couple of years, dating back to the very, very first WCPW tapings. It's this hatred that he has harboured that's been festering inside Coyle since early mid 2016. That's how long this has been there.
That's a long time to hate somebody. A long time to focus on just one thing. And Rory Coyle is nothing if not focused. Do not count this guy out. As dangerous as he is outside the ring, one thing I've noticed, Bradshaw, is inside the ring. Whenever Rory Coyle is inside the ring, I think people take him for granted. I think they view him as a brawler, someone who's comfortable outside the ring. But inside the ring, he's willing to be just as sick, if not more, than he is outside it. And how scary is that?
Yeah, terrifying. He's a terrifying human being. I find Gabriel Kidd increasingly scary by the week as well, because the depths that he will plummet are always amaze me, even in his case. So we'll see. As you say, I think combustible is absolutely the word. It's going to be an absolutely enormous tag team match at Unstoppable. If you want to see it on demand, you can be with us live via our on-demand service this Saturday in Manchester using access.wearedefiant.com. And of course, if you are a new customer, you get 30 days free trial, so you can effectively watch Unstoppable for completely free on Saturday. All right, we've got much more to talk about going into Unstoppable. We said about a couple of weeks ago how there was a lot of uncertainty regarding the card, right? And we still didn't know what several of the matches were going to be because of various twists and turns and injuries and contractual obligations here and there. We've managed to get all that ironed out headed into Saturday. We now know, for example, what the tag team title match will be. Aussie Open, who are the longest reigning Defiant tag team champions of all time, we're going to go against CCK, Chris Brooks and Kid Lykos. We know that Kid Lykos, unfortunately, is able to compete because of injury, but we now know who Brooks' partner will be, and it's all because he was wrongly framed by the anti-fun police in Prince Amin's investigation into the theft of El Phantasmo's glasses. Lucky Kid, having been exonerated scandalously through the discovery of a video that explained what really happened, has now been added to that match by our general manager. So it's going to be Lucky Kid and Chris Brooks competing for the tag team titles against Aussie Open on Saturday.
I cannot believe that this witch hunt, if you like, for El Phantasmo's glasses has resulted in someone as bizarre as Lucky Kid getting a Defiant tag team title shot. I mean, did you see Loaded when he walked away talking into a shoe? I mean, what was that all about? This man doesn't need exonerated, he needs committed, he needs locked up. I'm telling you, like, there's no one home. Lucky Kid is a seriously strange and messed up individual. We want to talk about Rory Coyle and the mental problems going through his mind. What about Lucky Kid?
Well, actually, I mean, yeah, we were talking about how both of those teams in that other tag team match are unusual alliances in their own ways. This one's unusual. I mean, everything about Lucky Kid is unusual anyway. But to put Lucky Kid with Chris Brooks is a strange combination, and they're going to have to get on the same page very, very quickly, obviously, if they're going to have any chance against really the most successful tag team we've ever had. So how do they begin to do that? If you're Chris Brooks, how do you approach this in the locker room before on Saturday when you try and talk strategy with a man who, as you say, is regularly talking into a shoe?
I don't think you can talk strategy with Lucky Kid. I think he's very much an impulse wrestler. Whatever he feels when he goes through that curtain happens. I mean, we saw him against BT Gunn several weeks ago in Loaded now, just lying in the middle of the ring. Just no one's home, Bradshaw. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think you can predict anything about Lucky Kid, what he'll do, how he'll respond, whether or not he's going to be a great teammate for Chris Brooks. To your point, I don't think Brooks has any chance of getting through and talking strategy with Lucky Kid. I think he just has to go out there and hope that Kid shows the kind of skills that brought him to the dance in the first place.
But, I mean, that's a big ask, though, to go out against Aussie Open, and what you're saying is he'll essentially have to wing it, given his partner, to try and beat Aussie Open for those tag team titles. That is a risky strategy, to say the least, against the tag team champions.
It is, but, what would you suggest? I mean, come on. You've been over to Germany. You've seen Lucky Kid up close. I mean, the guy is cuckoo. He really, really is. I hesitated to use that phrase, but he is. There's no other way to put it. And you go in there against a tag team like Mark Davis, Kyle Fletcher, Aussie Open, the Defiant Tag Team Champions, one of the best, if not the best tag team in wrestling right now. And you talk about Chris Brooks having to find an emergency partner, and then General Amin hands him someone as criminally insane as Lucky Kid. This is a toxic situation. It's a disaster waiting to happen. On the flip side of that, what if Lucky Kid is the partner that Chris Brooks needed all along?
Well, explain what you mean.
Well, hey, again, Lucky Kid. Super unpredictable, right? You never know anything about this man. What if he gels almost instantly with Brooks and they take those Defiant tag team titles? I mean, it could happen.
Oddly, you might be onto something, because I guess from Aussie Open's perspective, if they knew they were up against CCK, the regular version of CCK with Brooks and Lykos, well, there are hours and hours and hours of footage of CCK tag team matches from various independent promotions around the world that they could look at for homework. But they can't really. There's not much you can look at in terms of Brooks and Lucky Kid. I mean, they've had interactions in some other places, but certainly not on the level of CCK. And so, yeah, there is that unpredictability element here, which might be their saving grace, I suppose.
Hey, it could be. Now, obviously, Aussie Open, they're always prepared. But how can you prepare for someone as unpredictable as Lucky Kid? They now know that he's Chris Brooks' partner. Great. They can do their homework on him. I'm sure they already have. But Lucky Kid, you never know what he's going to bring on the night. So, and I think that goes for his partner, as we've established, Chris Brooks as well. He doesn't even know. So this is arguably the most unpredictable match on the card at Unstoppable.
And it's high stakes as well, because the tag team division in Defiant right now is so competitive. There's so many teams waiting in the wings for whichever team wins this on Saturday. We saw SCC, for example, on Loaded this week, and that was disgraceful, by the way. Like the SCC, the way they took down Marty Jones, which charitably we might say was accidental, the way he got knocked to the floor. But what was absolutely not accidental was the smirk of recognition on Kelly Six's face when he realised what he'd done. I mean, the lack of respect for a British wrestling legend just tells you everything you need to know about SCC.
Well, you have to say as well that even though obviously he didn't mean to do it, Marty Jones, the great Marty Jones, inadvertently cost the dynamic duo their match with the South Coast Connection. He tried to get in the ring, and then suddenly Six rolled up, I think it was Mark Billington, and got the pin. And after that, what was the crowd? What were they chanting? VAR? I mean, what's all that about? That's ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as, this is in Kelly Six's mind, I'm sure, almost as ridiculous as the thought of Marty Jones entering a Defiant ring and putting him in his place.
Well, regardless of how it happened, SCC did pick up the win. But before it happened, the Dynamic Duo had looked very impressive as well. So both of those teams are going to be in the mix, because Dynamic Duo didn't lose that in decisive circumstances, certainly. So SCC, Dynamic Duo, so many other teams as well you could think of who could be brought in from other promotions, and ones we've had here in Defiant as well. So the tag team division is exciting, and Aussie Open, as much as they've made these tag team championships their own, they can't get complacent, even if they do win on Saturday. And they certainly can't get complacent against Brooks and Lucky Kid, because complacency would be the absolute enemy for them when you're facing a team as unpredictable as their opponents will be on Saturday. Let's talk about the other the other title matches, I should say, that are going on at Unstoppable. Another man who's got his championship opportunity as a result of the consequences of this investigation by General Amin is El Phantasmo himself, the man whose sunglasses got stolen that sparked this whole chain of events. Phantasmo has been rewarded for his inconvenience with a title shot, an internet title shot, against Martin Kirby. Will this be the moment when El Phantasmo finally claims championship gold after a very, very impressive debut, 8 or 9 months here in Defiant.
El Phantasmo's been one of a kind since he joined the Defiant roster. He really, really has. But he's going toe-to-toe inside the ring with a man who beat Walter. Let's not forget that. Now, I know that you've laughed at the hijinks of Martin Kirby. You've called him ludicrous, ridiculous, and some other things we can't repeat on air, by the way. But Martin Kirby, at the end of the day, he is the champion. El Phantasmo, his job is to take that Internet Championship away from Martin Kirby, and that's easier said than done. Now, I've got a question for you, because you and I sat there at ringside and we watched Martin Kirby recently on Loaded in an incredible shock loss to Benji.
Yes, we did. It was one of the highlights of the year so far.
What's that going to do to the psyche of Martin Kirby going into this match? Because
I think Martin Kirby is probably suffering from that kind of complex where you're not imposter syndrome. That's the word for it, right? Where you deep inside you don't necessarily believe that you deserve the heights you've reached, because he will know. He's not an idiot. Well, that's maybe being charitable, but he's not stupid. He will know that the way he beat Walter, first of all, was cheating, but secondly was something of a fluke. He will know that he's just lost to Benji. And so he's going to know, Kirby, that this is not the form of someone with the Internet Championship around their waist. And so I don't know if he really, really thinks that at this point, this moment in his career with his recent results, that he is capable of beating El Phantasmo.
Well, Martin Kirby is a great all-rounder. You know, he can fly. He's a great technical wrestler. He can brawl. We've seen that firsthand over the years in Defiant Wrestling. We sure have. But I don't think he wants to, up the tempo and try and fly around the ring with El Phantasmo. Because El Phantasmo, he has that intangible quality about him that he just walks on water. Once the match quickens, once the pace of the match quickens, there are few that can ride with El Phantasmo. He is second to none in that regard. I think if you're Martin Kirby, you have to come in here with tactics. And in my opinion, here's just a thought. Here's what I would do. And I'm not going to speak for Martin Kirby because I'm not Martin Kirby. I'm not a champion like he is. But here's what I would do if I was the Defiant Internet Champion and I knew I was going face-to-face with El Phantasmo. Before the match started, I would come down with a big old iron bar, maybe a sledgehammer, and I would smash his knees up. And I would stop him from flying around the ring. Then I would encourage the referee to ask Phantasmo, do you still want your championship match?
Are you James R. Kennedy or Tonya Harding?
Oh, come on. It's the only way to beat this guy. Stop him flying around.
You are unbelievable.
Martin, we all know that El Phantasmo, whether he had broken legs or not, would say, yes, referee, ring the bell. I have my LED specs back. I'm feeling damn good, apart from the broken legs. And I want to become the Defiant Internet Champion. Then the bell would ring, and Martin Kirby would walk over, kick him in the head, pin him 1, 2, 3, and then run around Manchester holding aloft his Defiant Internet Championship.
That's your advice. That's your advice to Martin Kirby, is to take to El Phantasmo with a crowbar before the opening bell.
Yes, break his legs, stop him flying around the ring. Hey,
Brilliant.
Listen, it's a great strategy. If it happens before the match, the referee can't disqualify him.
This is why you're one of the great managerial minds of your generation, isn't it?
Exactly. Now you're catching on.
My goodness. All right. Well, I just think if you're Martin Kirby, for everything I've just been saying, yes, Martin Kirby has it in him to be ruthless and to be very, very good inside the ring. I mean, just think, it's not that long ago, of course, that he beat Joe Hendry in that I Quit match, right? How long ago was that? 4 months, maybe?
Yeah, not long.
Not even. And yet, look at the turn recently. Yes, he's won the Internet title, but as I said, in very controversial and undeserving circumstances, let's be honest about it. And then obviously that loss to Benji is a career low for Martin Kirby. So it's very quick how the tide has turned from the ruthless, unbeatable, do anything to win Martin Kirby that we saw against Hendry to one who has been riding his luck for quite a consistent amount of time now. And so Kirby needs to find, I think, a bit more of that spirit he showed against Hendry. Yes, it was unpleasant to watch in many ways because of how vicious he was, but at least it was competitive. Whereas I don't know if beyond all the hijinks and beyond all the singing and dancing and and distractions and diversions that Martin Kirby has been putting out recently, I'm not sure what else there is to Martin Kirby's current game that can get him past El Phantasmo, short of doing something ridiculous like you just suggested.
Well, success comes in many forms, and Martin Kirby has worn many masks, not literally, in Defiant Wrestling, and every single one has been successful. He's been the general manager. He's been the Defiant World Heavyweight Champion. He's now the Internet Champion. Everything Martin Kirby turns his hand to, he's successful at it. And I think this will be no different. I'm going to go out on a limb and lock it up right here. Martin Kirby will find a way, whether it's devious or not, to beat El Phantasmo. Because listen, Bradshaw, El Phantasmo's not ready for this match. Not mentally. He's been prattling around the place looking for some stupid glasses that he could have bought another pair for 50 pence in a Mars bar if he'd have put his mind to it. Meanwhile, Martin Kirby, yes, he's had his peaks and troughs. Yes, he did beat Walter, and then, yes, he did lose to Benji, but he's the champion. And he holds all the cards right now. El Phantasmo has to beat him, not the other way around.
All right, let's talk briefly about the one other championship match that we have going on at Unstoppable on Saturday. No Fun Done is going to be challenging the hardcore champion, Jimmy Havoc, for that championship, but it will be in an anti-hardcore match. Now, we'll get on to what that means in a second, but first of all, if there's one decision I'm still not quite sure about with General Amin, it's why Dunn still has this opportunity. He was given this opportunity against Jimmy Havoc for helping with the investigation into El Phantasmo's disappeared glasses, right? And yet it turns out that he was manipulating that investigation the whole time to try and frame Lucky Kid. So why does Dunn still have that chance is something that kind of baffles me.
Well, I think that General Amin has just suddenly had an epiphany and realised that he would be a snake if he went back on his word. I think that's what it must be. It's the only thing I can think of, because I'm kind of with you. You know, if General Amin thought that the anti-fun police were behind this all along and didn't exactly do much to, you know, be straight up with him and point him in the right direction, then maybe he shouldn't have given No Fun Done this championship match. But he did. And he can't go back on his word.
I think maybe the contracts were already signed.
Well, there you go.
I mean, I honestly think that's probably what it is, because at the time, Amin had no reason to believe anything other than that Dunn had been extremely helpful and helped him solve his investigation. So he's given him this opportunity. I'm assuming the paperwork's all done. If you'll excuse that pun again. I'm high on the puns today. But yeah, I just wonder whether that's it. That must be the reason. Anyway, he's going to get the match. It is signed as an anti-hardcore match, which means that if Jimmy Havoc is to use any weapons whatsoever, he will not only lose the match, but he will lose the hardcore title. And don't forget, No Fun Done has said if he gains possession of the hardcore title, he will change it to become the No Fun title.
Doesn't that just roll right off the tongue? Doesn't that sound beautiful? And if what you said is true and the contracts were already signed before Prince Amin got to the bottom of this investigation for El Phantasmo's glasses, isn't that a genius move from the anti-fun police to get their way before any of the truth came out? That's just genius to me. And now No Fun Done could achieve his ultimate goal. He could rid Defiant Wrestling of what he considers a foul, depraved division, the Hardcore Championship division. And he could rename that championship and remold it in his image. And this isn't exactly Jimmy Havoc's wheelhouse either. He kind of relies on using all his toys when that bell rings in Defiant Wrestling. He really does. And this could play right into No Fun Done's hands.
Well, we'll find out on Saturday. That is one of 4 championship matches going down at Unstoppable. Again, if you want to join us on demand, live broadcasting around the world from Manchester on Saturday night, you can at access.wearedefiant.com. We've still got 3 other matches to briefly talk about. I say there are 4 titles on the line. The title that's not on the line, of course, is the women's title, at least not in any match that's been announced so far. But we do have an absolutely phenomenal women's match involving the former women's champion, Bea Priestley. Now, Priestley, if you remember, has been absolutely tormented by Lana Austin for the past several months. When Priestley lost the women's title to Kanji, unexpectedly, of course, on that return episode of Loaded a couple of months ago. She was even offered a rematch. She had a rematch clause. And so Priestley could have had a one-on-one match against Kanji, which she would have been presumably the overwhelming favourite to win. And yet, her hatred at this point for Lana Austin, the intensity of that rivalry was such that Priestley said, no, I want a match against Lana Austin. And later on, she was not only granted the match, but it is now a Falls Count Anywhere match. This is going to be vicious, absolutely vicious, because Bea Priestley has developed a ruthless streak over the past year or so. That time in Japan has helped her with that enormously. Lana Austin is the very definition of vicious, and so this one will spill anywhere and everywhere around the Manchester Academy, and I don't know if anyone is safe.
Well, we witnessed with our own two eyes what Lana Austin is capable of on Loaded. You know, she seemed to have the Defiant Women's Championship in her grasp. She was just seconds away. All the referee had to do was count to 3, but that was a second referee, because the original referee, senior official Steve Linsky, he was on the deck reeling from a steel chair shot from Lana Austin. So he intruded on the referee's count and said, nope, that's not happening. DQ'd Lana Austin. She didn't get the championship. Does that change the dynamic of this match? Yes and no, because Bea Priestley, I'm sure, would have loved to have another chance to become Defiant Women's Champion. She would have got that had Lana Austin beat Kanji. It's not to be. Now, Bea Priestley has to just set her mind on something else. The satisfaction of tearing Austin limb from limb. A Falls Count Anywhere match. And you know what that means, Bradshaw? That means that we need some kind of protection at ringside, because it damn sure means they're going to be around ringside and near the commentary booth.
Well, it could go anywhere, like we said. And it is that viciousness, that temper of Lana Austin, as you say, that ultimately is the reason it's not a title match, because if she hadn't struck the official, then she could well be the women's champion coming in to this match on Saturday. And so that temper, although it's maybe what's got her as far as it has so far in Defiant, she needs to be careful of that, because she's made some pretty important mistakes, particularly on Loaded last week, because of that temper that she sometimes doesn't seem able to control. And Bea Priestley, having already been Defiant Women's Champion on 2 occasions, is a lot more experienced than the Bea Priestley who first came into this promotion. She's a much wiser, much more wily competitor than she was a couple of years ago. And so if Lana Austin does allow her temper to cause her to make a mistake, then Priestley will capitalize, and that might be the only mistake that Priestley needs to win. Maybe,
but you know, that temper, it has cost Lana Austin before. It's cost her some money as well as the opportunity to become women's champion, by the way. But here at Unstoppable, she can be as tempestuous as she likes. It's Falls Count Anywhere. And I'm going to say something that I firmly believe is true. Lana Austin despises Bea Priestley as much as Priestley despises Lana Austin. And that's such an incendiary situation, because when you let these two women go, as Prince Amin is, General Amin has said, you do whatever it takes to get rid of that anger and that animosity towards each other. I just want a straight up fight. Falls Count Anywhere. There must be a winner. We're going to see some I hesitate to say it. I was going to say we're going to see some blood, but we might just see that, because these two women hate each other and they'll do whatever it takes to win.
Now, 2 more matches to talk about on Unstoppable for this Saturday. Speaking of people who hate each other, there was another pull-apart brawl back in the locker room area on Loaded this past Sunday between Nathan Cruz and Omari, who are finally going to settle their differences in what is a rematch from Loaded a few weeks ago, of course, when Omari got that shock win over the professional. Cruz gets his chance to right that wrong, or wrong in his view at least, on Saturday. Will he be able to do that, or will Omari beat him again?
I wonder if this is just a step too far for Omari. Yes, he's been successful against Nathan Cruz in the past. Yes, he is definitely a future champion in Defiant Wrestling, maybe even this year. But Nathan Cruz has been around the horn so long. He's seen everything there is to see. Omari might not be able to bring something to the table that the professional hasn't witnessed before. And that might just be a fact of life. Nathan Cruz has to be the favourite going into this match. And there's some emotion in this as well. I know they're not... Well, I don't know what their personal relationship is like, but I'm guessing that Omari and man like Darius aren't personal friends away from the ring. Maybe they are. And maybe they'll be bonded by their dislike of Nathan Cruz in the future. But we saw what Nathan Cruz was willing to do to man like Darius even after he got what he wanted. Imagine what he'll do to Omari given the chance at Unstoppable.
Well, I just wonder, given that Nathan Cruz has seen all of these things, he's seen so many people come and go from British wrestling in his career, why would he pay particular attention to Omari? Why would he be that bothered by Omari that he would have attacked him a few weeks ago, that he would get into this feud that he's now in with Omari, unless he saw something in Omari that worried him? Unless Nathan Cruz looked at Omari and thought, that guy is a threat to my position in British wrestling because he's that good. And that's the only explanation. I've known Nathan Cruz for a decade, and I think that must be what's going through his head, because otherwise it was a random attack a few weeks ago. And Nathan Cruz doesn't do random. Everything Nathan Cruz does is for a reason, and I think he feels threatened. I think that's why he feels so angry that he got beaten, because it confirms his worst fears that Omari might have his number. And I think that is why he exploded in the way he did against a man like Darius. It all adds up. It all fits in with what I know of Nathan Cruz. And yet, that could become a lot worse. That condition, that psychological state that Nathan Cruz has got himself in about Omari could get a lot worse if Omari goes 2-0 against him on Saturday.
It could be that, or on the flip side, maybe Nathan Cruz has looked at what's happening, the changing face of Defiant Wrestling, seeing up-and-comers like man like Darius, like Omari, coming through, all the promise in the world, all the potential to be stars for years and years, perhaps decades to come. And maybe he doesn't like it, because Nathan Cruz was around the British scene when it wasn't looked upon quite as fondly as it is now. You know, he grafted, he worked hard, he did the shows that no one else wanted to do. You know, he's earned his stripes, and maybe he just feels guys like Omari believe, or they have a sense of self-entitlement, and they believe they should be handed everything. I'm not going to try and put words into Nathan Cruz's mouth. I'm just calling it from an outsider's perspective. That could be the case. But one thing we do know for sure is that Nathan Cruz will do whatever it takes at Unstoppable to stomp Omari out.
Now, last thing we need to talk about, last match on the Unstoppable card is one that, again, was an uncertain one for a little while, but we had an exclusive on this podcast last week when General Amin told us that John Bad Bones Klinger does have a new opponent for Saturday night, and it is going to be a very controversial man in British wrestling right now. That is Justin Sizem. Now, Klinger has been kind of arrogant. I think, is that the right way to put it, with the insisting on talking to people in German only recently and not wanting to, in his view, dumb things down for an English-speaking audience. Well, Justin Sizem fancies himself very much as a guardian, a protector of British wrestling. So Sizem will have taken great exception to Klinger's derogatory remarks about British wrestling fans and about British wrestling promotions. So Sizem's coming in there with a point to prove, but Klinger wanted a marquee victory at Unstoppable, and now with this opponent announced, and it is Justin Sizem, he has an opportunity to get that victory.
He does, and John Bad Bones Klinger had a bit of a tune-up match against Mickey the Dragon on Loaded this past week. He used that big diving elbow drop from the top rope for the win. You know, you've just got to do one thing, Dave. You've got to get with the badness. John Bad Bones Klinger has done a lot here in Defiant Wrestling. He was the Ringmaster Champion. That earned him a shot at Rampage and the Defiant World Heavyweight Championship. Now he's moved on to a different chapter in his career, and you're right. He believes he should be on the marquee. He should be in the big-time matches. Well, in terms of British wrestling right now, they don't come much bigger than Justin Sizem. You know, he's been all over the place on national television, for crying out loud. And yes, he believes he is a protector of British professional wrestling. Maybe doesn't take kindly to the way Bad Bones speaks down to people. But this is a great opportunity for John Klinger. It really, really is. I think if you look at it a different way and you peel back the curtain a little, you look at this as a chance for John Badbone Klinger to take the next step in his career and impress the right people and get his name back in the mix for World Championships.
Well, we will see. We have overrun here, but that is our rundown, if you like, of all 8 of the matches that have been announced for Unstoppable on Saturday night. Again, you can watch it on demand, access.wearedefiant.com, a 30-day free trial with no commitment whatsoever if you are a new customer. So if you are not already signed up to access.wearedefiant.com, make sure you get on there straight away. By the way, it's not just Unstoppable coming up in the near future. The following week, February 16th, we are back in Newcastle taping Loaded for the next few weeks. So if you want to join us for those Loaded tapings in Newcastle, wearedefiant.com/tickets. We have a busy week and a half ahead of us.
We do, and I'm looking forward to it. You know, it gets me excited running down all the matches that you and I are going to announce. People around the world are going to join us and watch these matches. And hey, you never know, we might crown some new champions here in Defiant Wrestling.
Yeah, it's going to be a very memorable night, to say the least, next Saturday. Ahead of that, let us know your predictions. Who do you think is going to win any of those 8 matches? 4 of them championship matches going on at Unstoppable on Saturday. You can tweet us at Defiant Res. That's Defiant, W-R-E-S. And, of course, you can use the hashtag WeAreDefiant to join the conversation online. That will do it. Before we go, do you want to hype your Twitter as always? I'm sure you do.
Of course, yes. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, by the way, at TopClassKennedy. And you can also, if you feel inclined, maybe show me a little bit of support, and more importantly, show my new girlfriend some support. She's not on Twitter, but you can get her on Instagram at Catherine Zeta-Jones. Now, she's a bit older than I'd normally go for.
How old is Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Well, I'm just saying, she's a bit older than I normally go for, but I assure you, she's lovely. She's still got the Welsh accent as well, or touches of it anyway. It's kind of been ruined by years of being a Hollywood starlet, but you know, you win some, you lose some. But I assure you, walking around with her on my arm fills my heart with a sense of pride, Dave Bradshaw.
Your delusions get stranger and stranger. They really, really do. All right, well, that's it. We will see you on Saturday in Manchester for Unstoppable. I can't wait. It's going to be an absolutely incredible night of action. We will, of course, after that, be back with you for another Reloaded podcast, this time next week. In the meantime, for James R. Kennedy, this has been Dave Bradshaw saying thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Yeah, I got a shot and I ain't stopping, no. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. That's how I know that I'm unstoppable. Yeah, let's go. I don't care what they all say. That's right. I'ma do this thing my way. Let's go. Been grinding hard on it all day. Okay. We work hard, then we all play.